I'm Mirror Fatheree.
This is Mirror Dave.
And this is Tex-Trek. Welcome to the 43rd installment of the Tex-Trek podcast. As you may or may not be aware, we have crossed over from what you call the Mirror Universe, and we have taken control of this podcast from your normal hosts. I believe they can be found in our agony booths right now, suffering untold horrors.
Well, that is when Mirror Dave isn't being my captain's woman.
They're also suffering some told horrors. But enough about them. We have gone through the computer memory banks of the Starship Texas, and we have discovered a review they did of a comic book focusing on our universe's Captain Picard and the Enterprise D.
Tell me more.
Well, it is called Star Trek The Next Generation Mirror Broken, and we're going to allow their thoughts to be heard now. I'm Fatheree.
This is Dave.
And this is Tex-Trek. And this is the first time we're going to have a full podcast dedicated to Star Trek in comic book form.
Mm-hmm. A specific comic.
Yes.
We had talked about doing some of the other comics, because there are some good comics out there in the otherwise very meandering paths of quality that the comics have taken. But they've done some good ones, and I would say this is one of the better ones.
This is one of the good ones. We're going to be talking about Star Trek The Next Generation Mirror Broken.
Mirror Broken. What's this about mirrors?
Yeah.
I thought that was just something that they talked about on Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah, so apparently mirrors are a big deal in Star Trek, in comic books, on Discovery, on Deep Space Nine, on the original series, on Enterprise. Just mirrors all over the place.
Yep.
Except for Voyager. But it's by Scott and Dave Tipton, a couple of brothers who like to write Star Trek funny books.
Right.
And the artwork is by J.K. Woodward, who, if you know anything about comic books, he has a very unique style where everything's fully painted.
Yeah.
It looks pretty good.
I feel like the shortcut way to describe him is to say it's a little bit like the Alex Ross. They are definitely different enough, and people who do semi-realistic paintings are not all the same, but it's in that ballpark. If you think Alex Ross and his ability to depict faces, capture likenesses, and things like that, Woodward has some of those same qualities.
Yeah, it's not quite as photographic realistic, but it's close. It's a very different style. Like his the way he colors things is very different.
I like him. I overall like him over Alex Ross. I think it's, to me,
I'm not saying Ross is better. I'm just saying, like, it's not. Ross is like super realistic looking, and Woodward is not quite as realistic.
He's clearly working from photos on the faces and stuff like that, but in a better way than I see than almost anybody else do. Almost everybody else, you can kind of tell there's like a few panels where it's like, oh, he was kind of winging it there, and that kind of looks like Crusher and kind of doesn't. And then there'll be one key one where you're like, oh, it looks exactly like her in this. He probably was still framing through it on Blu-ray or had a picture to work with. This guy, I feel like, has a much higher percentage. Like almost every single panel with those characters looks dead on like them and was probably in some way photo referenced. But at the same time, there's certain artists I've seen who do photo reference where it looks cheesy, and I feel like he does cross the barrier into like making it his own. So I like it. And just a real quick say how we're going to structure this. We're going to just talk very generally about it first, and then we'll get a little bit more into the plot. So if you do want to read it, and I think we're going to generally, just real quick up front, I'm recommending it.
Yeah, I definitely suggest you pick this up. The trade should be out, so it'll be available at any comic shop, or you can also find it online if you don't have a local store nearby. Check it out on the IDW app or on Comixology.
Yeah, and so in our second part we'll be doing kind of a spoilery review where we'll talk full plot stuff and some of the cool things that they do, because weirdly, as cool as the Mirror Universe is, Next Generation definitely kind of wanted to seemingly like separate itself from a lot of classic Trek plot lines. They didn't use all the old aliens. They didn't only occasionally did they reference classic Trek episodes, very occasionally. And so, but that means they left behind the big Mirror Universe fun.
Yeah, and they actually kind of did their own version of the Mirror Universe with in our last podcast, we talked about one of Tarantino's favorite episodes, Yesterday's Enterprise.
Right.
Where they had an alternate timeline where you got to see the Enterprise D as more of a warship, and it did have kind of that same type of vibe that Mirror Mirror on the original series had.
Right.
But yeah, for the
It's always fun to see our kind of peace-loving characters forced into dire straits and how they would deal with it.
Man, for the most part, they did avoid a lot of the TOS type stuff, including the Mirror Universe. Mirror Universe got explored the most on Deep Space Nine. Mm-hmm. And they incorporate some of that Deep Space Nine lore, the contributions from that show, into this comic. And just to touch on like a few key things in there that won't really spoil anything for you, but the general idea is that you have Captain Picard. He's on the Imperial starship Stargazer for the Terran Empire, and the Terrans, or humans, they've kind of had their asses kicked by the Cardassians and Klingon alliance. That was from Deep Space Nine, they established that. Right.
It feels like the Federation is like third world right now.
Yeah. Yeah, so, well, not the Federation, the Terran Empire.
Right, they're evil equivalent of the Federation.
Yeah, the evil mirror version of the Federation. So they've been kind of surrounded on all sides. They've had to retreat into Earth's solar system. And they're
I'm not mistaken, like basically nobody takes them seriously. They're not one of the players on the chessboard.
Yeah, and like in other parts of the galaxy, people talk about them like they've already been conquered.
Right.
Which was explain like why on Deep Space Nine they're like, like the Terran Empire, it's been destroyed, it's gone.
Right.
So that's how they made it fit into the canon, which I appreciate.
But it seems as if this ambitious Captain Picard might have a notion for kind of a to restore some, if not honor, some credibility to the Terran Empire and glory for himself.
Yes.
Can we? And I think we can say what he's trying to do. He's trying to steal an experimental ship called Enterprise, a one-of-a-kind prototype.
They're building this Galaxy-class starship that will be this badass warship that will help the Terran Empire reclaim its lost territory, and it is the Enterprise. And so his plan is to take over the ship and basically go and complete that mission it's being built for, to go and defeat the Klingon-Cardassian alliance.
Right. Should we give a quick thing? What did you think?
I liked it a lot. I liked seeing the ways that they created the Mirror Universe versions of the Next Generation characters. We got to see the Mirror Universe version of Data.
Right.
Where he's kind of Borg-looking, and
there's some neat stuff that the artist did. I don't know if it's in all of them or if it's only in the Free Comic Book Day special that's like a prelude, but there's some sketches of some of the characters, and you see how he designed their costumes. And, it's got Picard showing his guns, but he has a bunch of different versions of the characters, and he talks about things he liked, things he wanted to avoid, things he wanted to fix from the costumes.
People don't like sleeves in the Mirror Universe. We know that from the original series.
Right. They're pirate costumes. They're like versions of Starfleet meets pirates.
Yeah, all of the men in this universe, they work out their arms. We actually see Picard lifting weights in the second issue.
Yeah.
And a lot of the women...
I'll say this, Patrick Stewart was always one of the more in-shape captains, and he's always had some pretty decent biceps going on. So that's actually, I feel that's kind of legit.
They didn't really showcase that until First Contact, though.
I guess not. But if you ever see him in Excalibur, though, as I think King Leondegrance or whatever, he's got some guns.
Yeah. No, he's. I have seen in person. I have seen Patrick Stewart's abs.
Yeah. He's mighty sexy.
That was I was at a the panel that the Next Generation
Fatheree, check this out.
Not quite, but it was at a panel here in Austin, Texas, for the 25th anniversary of the Next Generation. They had all of the main cast, even Wesley, even Will Wheaton was there, and Marina Sirtis made some comment about something like, "Have you guys seen Patrick's abs?" And she pulls up his shirt. And he was ripped.
Yeah.
But we definitely get to see the J.K. Woodward painted version of these ripped Captain Picard arms. Yeah. We also see Deanna Troi as Inquisitor Troi.
Which is a cool idea.
Her film fatale type, kind of Scarlet Witchy type
Yeah, I
costume.
think so. Yeah, a little bit of an evil gypsy thing going on there.
It definitely fits into the mirror universe thing of just like the men show off their arms, the women show off their bellies.
Right. And they're all pretty strong designs, I have to say.
And that cool Terran Empire insignia of the Earth with the dagger through it.
Oh,
which
yeah.
is just a cool... I'm guessing Matt Jeffries came up with that. Or
Yeah, probably so.
I don't... Was he still designing stuff in Season 2?
That's a good question.
But I don't... Whoever designed it back in 1967, I guess, they did 50 years ago, they did a really good job with this cool little simple iconic design. But...
I was going to say, I feel like one of the kind of the draws to this is a lot like a DC Comics Elseworlds or a Marvel What If, is like you kind of just want to have some fun seeing all the differences. Every character you meet, you're going to find out like what way they're different. Character relationships are changed. They do some like awesome stuff with. I mean, like Riker is cool in this, but they use some supporting characters too, like Barkley and. Who's the chick that Geordi had his crush on?
Leia Brahms.
Leia Brahms. What do you call it? Wesley Crusher is memorably different. And a lot of the fun of this is seeing all of that stuff and also seeing our heroes be bad people.
Yeah, but they still have like the elements of similarities to how they were. We've talked about this before, just off mic, but there's kind of two different approaches to doing a mirror universe type thing. You either do where you're kind of the same guy, like Spock in both universes. He's still like, kind of like the logical, rational, scientific type guy.
Right. He just sort of logically supported fascism
Yeah.
in his.
But they didn't go like total opposite, where he would have been like super emotional,
right?
Probably like not that knowledgeable.
Right. He wasn't a emotional barbarian.
Yeah. Which would have been like the opposite.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of being really strong, he's really weak.
Right.
That sounds like a terrible character.
The writers get to do what's dramatic, what's interesting. If it's more interesting for Quark to be a hero, then they run with that. If it's more fun to have Deanna Troi be a kind of deadly inquisitor that everybody's terrified of because she will get in your head and rat you out, then they're going to roll with that.
Barkley calls her a mind witch. Which is like that's just a cool comic booky
Yeah, that's such a
term.
I'm sure that's something that like Jean Grey got called in Chris Claremont's run.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I liked it a whole lot. It is not a deep story, but it is one of those that kind of kept me involved every issue. And every issue I was going like, oh, that's cool. Oh, man, look at this. This is cool. Oh, what do they do to this character? So there was lots of like fun little bumps like that. It is easily one I'm going to pick up in graphic novel form.
And I didn't look at any of the numbers on how this sold, but I imagine the expectations weren't that high with, it's an IDW title that is just going to be a limited run miniseries.
Right. It did
feel
like they sort of putting a painter as good as J.K. Woodward, who, by the way, prior to this, I think did he do the Star Trek Next Generation Doctor Who crossover?
Yes.
Which was, I thought, quite good.
It was also written by the Tiptons.
That's right.
So if you like that, you'll probably like this. In fact, I would say this is better.
Kind of torn, but I think you're right. But he's more A-list artist. They usually have good artists, but he's better than most of them. So I think they realized that this was kind of a hotter ticket, the never explored mirror universe of Next Generation.
You on being on the retail side of the comic industry,
for those who don't know, I manage a comic shop called Rogues Gallery in Round Rock, Texas. Come visit us.
Tell them that Tex-Trek sent you, and you'll win the
you get a high five,
the prize.
I'll hook you up with a free comic.
Dave says he'll give you a free comic.
Yeah.
But did you see a lot of people picking this up?
Yes.
So do you think that
we actually quite frequently every week we do reorders, and we usually kept this one stocked, and just today, in fact, we sold the final copy of issue 5, which is, in a way, this is a perfect bit of sell through that we never see. We always have some random issues, a few on the shelf, none of which are returnable, so we just kind of eat the cost of anything we don't sell. Every once in a while there's returnable stuff, but it's only if there's like a glitch in the solicit or something. So yeah, this was perfect. We kept reordering it, expecting at some point to get stuck with it. No, it perfectly sold out. This is my favorite comic ever.
Yeah, that was
so yes,
it worked out well.
It did it didn't do astonishingly well, but it was certainly the best-selling Star Trek comic we've had in a while. Shall we, do we want to dive into specifics?
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and tell you pretty much the entire story of the comics. So if you plan on reading it and don't want any spoilers, please stop.
Live long and prosper, y'all.
Yeah, live long and prosper, y'all. Get the hell out of here.
Get the short version.
If you've already read it, or if you're just someone who's either too lazy, too stupid, or don't have the time to read comic books, but you want to know what happens, just sit right there and listen to us.
Stupid.
Yeah, or lazy, or if you don't have the time.
But
I gave them options.
We're going to offer color commentary, so we're also going to make it scintillating.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through just a kind of a summary. I should say though that there was a free issue that came out on Free Comic Book Day.
Yep.
Then there were 5 issues that were not free.
Right.
That Dave made me give him money for. And then
we're not in their future socialist society yet, Fatheree.
Yeah,
no free rides here.
The post-capitalist Roddenberry
That's right.
world. You gotta pay for this like you gotta pay for Star Trek Discovery on CBS All Access.
That's right. Sorry, we're still in eugenics wars right now.
But yeah, we're getting there. It actually begins in the first issue with Lieutenant Barclay.
Yeah, this would be considered a prelude of sorts.
Yeah, so the free issue for Free Comic Book Day, it shows Barclay being basically treated like a slave in engineering on the Stargazer. He's being whipped by a superior officer. And
broadly fits with what we might imagine of Barclay.
Yeah, he's literally the whipping boy. And he says things like, he hates serving on this ship. He hates serving under Captain Picard. And he's actually called into the captain's ready room. Mm-hmm. And this Picard has, instead of having the fish in the fish tank, he has this giant anaconda wrapped around a tree.
Yeah, his anaconda don't want none unless you got bones.
Yeah, so you have this little visual cue. This is a more vicious Jean-Luc Picard, and he's with Inquisitor Troy, and he has this terrifying android named Data, who Barclay doesn't know what to think about. And there's also the security officer Tasha Yar, and basically Picard just secretly between Barclay and Troy, he's telling Barclay, I need you to work with Tasha Yar, help her deal with some Vulcans that are rebelling on this ship. So Barclay's trying to repair a weapon system so that they can shoot at these Vulcans. There's these Vulcan slaves trying to take over the ship and escape the Earth's solar system. And Barclay is able to make the repairs, but Tasha Yar is also treating him like a whipping boy. He's getting punched in the stomach by her. Yeah. She's making fun of him. Anyways, she ends up blowing up the Vulcans after these weapon systems are repaired. And Barclay really didn't take kindly to the way Tasha Yar was treating him. So we see this is a
treating him or treating the Vulcans?
Treating him.
Right.
So this is a super vicious...
Yeah, this is one of those comics where the fate of the Vulcans is kind of incidental.
Yeah, no one gives a shit.
Yeah, we really care more about poor Barclay being whipped.
Yeah, and punched in the gut.
Yeah.
So Barclay actually does get his revenge on Tasha Yar, but he waits till she's alone in a corridor. Then he runs up behind her and stabs her in the back. And her dying words are, "Barclay, you damn coward." And Picard moves Barclay up in rank and makes him the new chief of security. So that's how things work in the Mirror Universe. In case you never saw Mirror Mirror, this is going to explain it for you in one issue.
Yep, you can only push people so far. He's a desperate man, and Barclay's became unpredictable.
Yeah, and he's also a coward. He waited and killed her in a very cowardly way.
Yeah, but it does make him effective.
Yeah, he's effective. And so then we go into issue 1. The Stargazer crew detects a Cardassian ship nearby that's doing a recon mission into the Sol system. And they're having some type of warp core breach, so they're an easy target. Picard orders the Stargazer to go after the Cardassians. And they engage them in battle. They're able to blast the ship open, killing all the Cardassians on board when they are blown out into the vacuum of space. Picard orders 2 of the Cardassians to be beamed aboard and taken prisoner.
By the way, if we can get any visuals up, the space battles in this are really nice. You see those phasers shearing through the Cardassian ship. You see bodies spilling out into space violently. It's pleasantly horrific, and also they do the cool effects where when the shields get hit, you see that partially illuminated sphere around the ships and stuff. So they're just in general their special effects budget for the comic is really good.
And I love the panel of all the Cardassians being sucked out into space. Picard orders two of them beamed aboard and taken prisoner, and then they're hauling the rest of the ship, the remains of the ship, to Utopia Planitia shipyards on Mars. They're going to turn over the ship, and when they get there, Picard is disappointed to learn that no one really cares about this half of a Cardassian ship and a mere 2 prisoners. He's told to bring back a little bit more than that next time. So he responds to the acquisitions officer with "Go to hell." And so they're like, this Picard, he's not the super prestigious captain of the mirror, or I'm sorry, of the Prime universe.
Right. He's a guy who speaks his word. He's not a diplomat. He's cagey. He's always thinking.
He's not in a super he's not like captain of the flagship.
Right.
He's on this old Stargazer ship. He's people are talking shit to him. He's like, oh, this is the best you could do.
Yeah.
He's bringing
one of the running themes throughout the whole
ship.
thing is even when he starts bringing the crew together is a question of their loyalty. Like, can anybody trust anybody in here? They need it to happen, and so they have to figure out a way to make it work. But
the character who does seem loyal to him is the android Data, who Picard had rescued from the android slave mines of Dr. Soong. And Data's very...
Like I said, it's fun to see all the bizarre Mirror Universe variants.
And Data, instead of being a guy who's trying to, become more human, he's obsessed with his machineness and trying to upgrade himself and make himself into a better machine.
Cool idea.
And Data is able to hack into the computer systems at Utopia Planitia to find these opportunities that Captain Picard needs to get on top where he wants to be with his ambition. And they find out about this ship Enterprise, this new Galaxy-class ship being built. It's going to be a badass warship.
It is a little funny to me that it does look like the kind of beautiful designed classic Next Generation Enterprise, which is, made to have families in it and stuff like that.
It looks like the version of the Enterprise we saw in All Good Things, where it had a third nacelle added and had like that big disruptor under the saucer.
Yeah.
And it had like the 2 phaser turret things on top of the saucer.
It just still broadly conforms to the interior visuals and all that stuff of Next Generation.
But I think it wouldn't have worked if it didn't look like
No, I agree completely. I'm actually just kind of mildly amused by it.
And they explain, because I was like, well, why would you need the ship so big if you're not going to have families on it if it's a warship? And they explain, the ship is designed to transport a shitload of troops. So you basically can show up at a planet with a ship and you have an army on board.
Yep.
It's a ship for 1,000 people.
After that episode where Crusher is in that shrinking bubble universe or whatever, and the Enterprise keeps having fewer and fewer ships or crew members, until eventually she's the only person.
That was Crusher. Did you say Crusher?
I thought so.
Okay.
And every time she's talking to the computer, she's like, "Computer, why are only 2 people running the Enterprise?" And it'll give her a logical reason. So you can come up with logical reasons, but I have to say, transporting armies is a cool reason for the Mirror Universe. And yet another cool, clever thing that the Tiptons came up with. Yeah,
they know their shit, and they really get Star Trek. But but Picard and Data, they learned that one of the people working on this new Enterprise ship is Geordi LaForge, who had previously served on the Stargazer, so they know the guy. They go and they talk to him, and they're telling him, we basically want to steal this ship, or are you going to help us? LaForge agrees. He says that he hates being discriminated on because he's blind. Everyone gives him a hard time because of his handicap he was born with.
Right. In this universe, I'm sure, it's particularly awful.
Yeah, it's kind of the whole opposite of what we think of in the Star Trek philosophy, where instead of embracing the diversity, you're like, this guy is
a weakling.
A weirdo. Yeah, he's a weakling. Only the strong should survive. And LaForge says that Captain Picard always treated him fairly, so Captain Picard has his loyalty.
By the way, Picard treating him well isn't presumably out of compassion, but probably because he saw his
potential.
His potential, yeah. He's like, this guy knows stuff.
Yeah, he's still a good engineer in this universe.
Right.
But
I bet privately he was like, it's too bad his eyes make him so weak.
The thing that is different here is that instead of Geordi LaForge having this awkward crush on Leia Brahms, it's kind of the other way around. It's kind of like she is kind of desperately in love with him. He's a bit dismissive of her. Or I think that was the implication.
Yeah.
And she also seems to be kind of a drunk.
Yes.
So he basically like goes. He kind of does he like break into her? I don't think he breaks into her apartment, but he shows up uninvited.
Yeah.
And sweet talks her.
Right. He's definitely got a kind of cocky vibe that is very unusual for Geordi.
Very not the Geordi that we know.
It also has like slightly different visors, so that it's actually just they kind of individually cover each eye, but it's sort of almost a little bit more like
kind of like Morpheus from the Matrix.
Right.
He's
yeah.
also,
it's kind of like they kind of look like mod
like
shades.
Yeah. But he lays the charm on Leia Brahms, and he's like, I
like seeing characters like supporting characters like that show up.
He's like, listen, babe, you need to help me and Captain Picard. I love that she's like, oh, is he the one with the crazy robot?
Yeah.
Geordi's like, yeah, that's him, but we're going to take over the Enterprise, and you're going to help us bypass the security. And she's like, I don't know, but he's like, no, come on, like, I'll give you anything you want, and you'll be on my engineering crew. And she's like, anything? And like, yeah, she wants the D. She wants the Geordi D.
Yeah, it's true, and you know what? If you know, I was talking about I want sex in more sex in Star Trek, and they delivered it on here. Actually, there's no sex scenes in here, but it's referred to more overtly.
But speaking of shall we say lust in Star Trek, Picard learns that Captain Jellicoe will be the captain of this Enterprise, but Commander William Riker will be the first officer, who is an old flame of Inquisitor Troy.
Right.
So she arranges a meeting of Picard and Riker. She basically tells Riker, hey, I'm in the system, will you meet me at this bar? But instead Picard shows up.
Right. So
Riker thought he was going to run into Troy, but instead he meets like this weird, bald French guy who has an English accent for some reason. And they have this really cool exchange there where Picard is saying, Will, you need to talk privately with me. I have something I want to talk to you about. And Riker's like, get lost. And then Picard's like, no, like, we really need to talk about this. I'm not going to ask you a third time.
Yep.
And eventually they start trading blows in the bar and getting this cool bar fight.
Yep.
And I love, like, Riker's, his retort to that he gets like, I'm not going to ask a third time. What the hell type of pompous shit is that? Like, I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically how it plays out.
And it's like a knockdown, drag-out fight.
Yeah, it was really cool, and the artwork was really cool on that.
Yep.
And Star Trek does have a history of bar fights from time to time.
Yep. Oh my god, I forgot. He Picard is like suplexing him there.
Yeah,
he really did.
They're like WWE style fighting, just wrestling.
It's one of those we were just talking about when I'm watching movies, sometimes I will laugh when I'm watching a movie and they do something really audacious, or I'm just like, oh my god, what a crazy cool idea that was. I was no doubt doing that I am just now as I'm flipping through it again at their fight. It's a great fight.
And this is where the comic got really cool to me, because when I saw this cover on issue 2 of the two of them fighting, I assumed, with what I knew of the Mirror Universe, there would be Captain and First Officer fighting over command of the Enterprise.
Right.
And I wasn't that excited to see that, because I feel like I've kind of seen that type of stuff before, especially whenever Star Trek is doing Mirror Universe stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved what they did in here so much more than what my expectation was, where they actually have, like, the two of them, they're fighting in this bar, and as they're having this fight, they earn each other's respect.
Right.
And they're both evil shitheads.
But it's kind of that, like, Viking kind of thing,
yeah.
Like when Thor and Hercules will fight sometimes, and then they're like, at the end they're like, we are brothers now, or at least we've taken each other's measure, and we've found that, you're a man.
You get the same way that in the show they kind of develop like this mutual respect for each other, and they're like, I really want you to be my captain, I really want you to be my first officer, and we can serve these roles for each other super well. You get these guys kind of pick up on that too, and Riker is like, we're going to take the Enterprise from Jellicoe. I'm all for, and I love that like in this universe, Riker and Jellicoe don't get along either.
Yep. Jellicoe's another one. Yeah. Happy to have him in the mix. Who
Jellicoe being the if you don't remember, he was the captain in the Next Generation episodes, the Chain of Command parts 1 and 2. He was the substitute teacher on the Enterprise.
While Picard was off getting tortured, he was kind of being a pain in the ass to Riker and everybody on the ship.
Yeah. And so this Mirror Universe Riker is like, I'll help you take the ship from Jellicoe. So on to the next issue, in issue 3, the Enterprise is finally leaving space dock. Leia Brahms is able to disable the security on the shuttle bay so Picard and his boarding party can beam aboard. They start taking over the ship. Geordi takes over engineering. Troy takes control of the transporter room, and there's that cool moment there where Counselor Troy is holding a phaser or disruptor or whatever it is, and she says, who's in command here?
Mm-hmm.
And there's this one officer, he says, well, I'm the chief transporter officer, and she shoots him, kills him, and she says, I'll ask again, who's in command here? And then everyone else is like, you are.
Yep.
And she's like, oh, that's so much better. And it's like this kind of evil, cheeky smile.
Yeah, fully evil smile. It would normally be reserved for something on the regular show where she's like, oh, Will, you're so silly. But
and they take over the bridge thanks to Riker and his presence next to Captain Jellicoe, so they finally get full command of the ship. Now, on the ship, you have Dr. Beverly Crusher and her son, Wesley. And Wesley appears to be a non-vocal, some type of mental issues. He's, like, not all there.
This is also a fantastic cover. It's actually not quite indicative, I think, of what happens in there.
Yeah.
But crazy, spiky-haired Wes Crusher, agony boothing Picard.
And it makes the rainbow sweater look cool.
Yep. Oh, yeah, that's right. They did a variant on that.
But Picard sees that, yeah, Wes, you're actually a super genius. I'm not buying your act.
Yeah.
And he uses Wes to talk Beverly into joining with him. Because Beverly is like, yeah, John Luke, we're not on the best terms. There was never a full investigation into Jack's death. So it kind of implies that Picard had his best friend killed. He had Jack Crusher killed.
Right.
Probably to, like, move up in rank. Which is what you
completely
do
makes sense in
the Mirror Universe. Yeah.
The scene where Wesley's kind of breaking down the sort of winning by the numbers.
Yeah, he's doing the numbers.
Yeah, it's almost like a sort of a savant, like an autistic savant who's like crunching all this, but like tactical battle issues and stuff in his head. There's more than once in this. I'm occasionally, I was like, oh, I wish he'd been a little bit more like this in the regular universe. Oh, I wish that Troy not necessarily had been murderous, but that she had been more of like a sly advisor the way she is here.
Yeah.
So they really do some cool stuff with them.
It's one of the things we keep going back to from when we talked about Encounter at Farpoint is we like the idea of Troy kind of being the advisor, the right-hand man to
Right. If she really
Picard.
could read people as well as she's supposed to, it would have been awesome if she was kind of like always, like almost in that like FBI profiler kind of way, getting in people's head and anticipating their moves even before they thought of them. But it wasn't where the show went with it. They kind of kept her up as the slightly touchy-feely, conscience of the characters. But if you want to see a little glimpse of what could have been, a little bit, plus her phasering people, then this is your book.
But the Wesley Crusher of the Mirror Universe, he does do the mental calculations, the number crunching. He tells his mom, like, yeah, we should side with Picard, even though the powers that be, the rest of the Starfleet's going to come crashing down on him. He does have command of the ship. He has Riker. It looks like he knows what he's doing, so we should side with him. And they give their loyalty to Captain Picard. Mm-hmm. And so issue 3 ends with Jellicoe being executed. They basically throw him out of the shuttle bay or the cargo bay, and he goes off into space and dies. And so this is kind of cathartic for anyone who just couldn't stand Jellicoe as the asshole captain and chain of command. You get to see him kind of like ceremoniously killed by the Next Generation characters that we do like.
Yeah, at least he got, the cliche of, oh, he was just unceremoniously executed. No, you were ceremoniously executed, and you should appreciate it, Jellicoe.
Yeah, and he dies telling Picard, like, the same thing that happened to me, it'll happen to you. Riker or someone else, they'll try to overthrow you and this, cut.
Pretty good way to go out, throw in some shade their way, and like increasing the paranoia level of an already extremely paranoid setting.
And Picard just being super calm about the whole ordeal and super confident. I think his words are that remains possible, but it's really nothing you need to worry about. Mr. Jellicoe, consider yourself dismissed. And they drop the force field, and he's sucked out into space.
Yep. It's cool.
It's cold.
Yeah.
I like it. So then we have issue 4.
Next to last issue.
The captain beams over an isolation pod from the Stargazer containing Guinan. But this Mirror Universe guy, and she's kind of like a caged animal.
Yeah.
Kind of feral.
It's as if, like, her knowledge has, like, maybe overwhelmed her or
like
something.
She's gone insane.
Yeah.
And,
She reminds me of, like, sort of like, you know, like in, fantasy stories and in, like, Macbeth and stuff like that, like the witches in there, where they have, their knowledge has made them crazed. And that was another fun new take on it, I thought.
And Picard goes to the Neptune station, where he's friends with this alien who's like the warden, and they drop off all the Jellicoe loyalists. They're all being held prisoner on the station now, and so Picard has command of the Enterprise.
You know, you're right. I think those are Gorn.
Yeah, the guards are Gorn, but the warden, he's like an insect man.
He's something else, yeah.
I ain't sure what he is. You know, that's how like the Gorn looked on Enterprise. Was like that.
Yep.
Which I think the idea is that like there's different types of Gorn.
I thought you were talking about the insect man, but yes, indeed.
But then like the shit kind of hits the fan, and a whole lot of Starfleet ships come after the Enterprise. You know, they're like, "What the hell are you doing, Picard? We're not gonna let you get away with this." But he has the most powerful ship, and so he's going to fight them off.
Mm-hmm.
But over the course of this battle, a shitload of Klingon and Cardassians show up. So you have like this huge Klingon-Cardassian alliance armada show up and surround the Enterprise.
The final page is the comic book equivalent, or a fleet equivalent of a Mexican standoff. Everybody's pointing guns at everybody. It's Tarantino with ships.
Well, I don't know.
This is what his standoff can be in the movie.
I would say this is more perilous than that, because like the Enterprise is so incredibly outnumbered.
Right. It is actually like it's the Enterprise and I guess a few other Federation ship and like dozens, you know, like of Cardassians and Klingons. So
it's like when you make that turn from the second act to the third act, and you have like the stakes are at the highest, the danger is at the highest that it's ever been.
Yep.
And the Enterprise has to face off against this entire fleet. So the final issue 5, Captain Picard basically tells the Cardassian commander, Gol Danar, who has a very similar name to Deep Space Nine character Cardassian Damar, but this is Danar. And he basically tells him, I'm going to fight you off, but this is where it kind of gets weird for me. Is you have like Guinan like wakes up in her isolation pod, runs to the bridge, makes her way to Picard, starts talking to him, and I don't know, like gives him like this little speech about like you need to like keep your ego in check, and I guess this was to inspire him to actually come up with this cool maneuver that he does to win the day.
Does something of a variant on the Picard maneuver concept. Yeah, I'll have to reread the entire thing again, but my take was sort of that it seemed like he was going to just, like, try and go toe-to-toe with them, or, expected to maybe go down swinging, and instead she's like, drop the arrogance and the ego and like, think.
Yeah, and she had kind of a selfish motivation, because she's like, you're going to get us both killed.
Right.
So it was kind of like just out of self-preservance that she's trying to, like, give advice to Picard, not because she actually cares.
Maybe that was probably what Guinan was doing in the regular universe.
That was just like always Guinan. No, she cared about people's personal problems.
Yeah,
like any good bartender does.
Right.
They actually just care about tips. But
maybe she got great tips, and that's probably the secret.
They don't tip on the Enterprise.
They said she was a great bartender, and she rose in the meritocracy.
Okay, that's fair, I guess. But so Picard has this cool idea where basically he's going to split the Enterprise into 3. Right. Like the Prometheus and Voyager. They're going to do the saucer separation, and they're also going to have the captain's yacht, which kind of looks like the Enterprise E captain's yacht we saw in Star Trek Insurrection. He asked Riker to pilot the captain's yacht.
Yep.
Which Riker is pissed off about, because like, why are you going to put me in the most vulnerable situation?
Legit fear in the mirror universe.
Is it because like I'm the most threatening to your command? Like, are you trying to get rid of me? And I love how Picard tells him, well, we both know, like, you're the best pilot we got. Which is true in the true universe, the true Next Generation. Riker was known as a great pilot. Mm-hmm. That's why, even though Captain Jellicoe didn't like him, that's why he had to use Riker's piloting and kind of get over his distaste for Riker. So they're able to split the ship into 3, and they do this cool variation on the Picard maneuver, where the secondary hull of the Enterprise, which has the warp nacelles and the warp reactor, it's warping all around the Cardassian and Klingon ships.
It looks a little bit like, if you watch Discovery, the maneuver that they did at the very end to kind of like get the to see through the cloak. on the Klingons.
On the sarcophagus ship.
Yep.
And while they're doing that, they have the saucer section shooting at Cardassians and Klingons. They have the captain's yacht flying around trying to draw people's fire. They have the other Starfleet ships that went to capture Picard. They're now working with him, and they're engaged in the battle, taking out the Cardassians and Klingons. And Picard is able to win the day. And the cool thing about the Picard maneuver is that whereas in the proper timeline... Mm-hmm. That's like a famous thing. It's like, oh yeah, that's how he defeated. They didn't know it was a Ferengi Marauder, but this alien ship. Right. That's how he defeated them on the Stargazer. He used the Picard maneuver, where you go into warp from one spot to another spot, and it looks like to your enemy that you're in 2 locations at the same time. They don't know who to fire on. Right. And then you shoot at them, and it was kind of well known as the Picard maneuver. Whereas, in here, he kept it as a secret because he didn't want anyone else to have that advantage. Right. So right. He makes
he's a little more Sun Tzu about it.
Yeah, he's there's some things I've learned that I haven't advertised that I know how to do that no one else does, and they won't see this coming. And so that's the Mirror Universe version of the Picard maneuver. Mm-hmm. And the episode kind of concludes with Picard gloating to the Cardassians. He tells Gold Dinar to run back home and get out of here. The Cardassians and the Klingons retreat. Then we have...
He actually full-on tells them their days are done. Which is telling, it'd be I don't know, a pipsqueak country telling, Europe, your days are done.
And, this would be I don't know, say... I don't know what country I want
Australia?
to right now.
Pick a continent?
I'll say New Zealand.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Just, Trek on the Tube.
Your days are done.
Trek on the Tube, are you watching this? Comment and let me know. He's from New Zealand.
Sorry.
But, this would be if New Zealand told, NATO, your days are done, son, we're coming for you. It's full on, Mouse Who Roared.
Right. But after they had done some ass kicking.
Yeah, but after they totally did some ass kicking.
Yeah.
And did such ass kicking that Admiral Quinn, who we saw in season 1 of The Next Generation, he was the admiral in Conspiracy with the little bugs that called in people. And before that, we saw him in where Wesley has to take the Starfleet test. Mm-hmm. In
you know about the one where they blew up a ship or whatever?
Well, no, where they make him think that someone's trapped under a piece of debris. Simulation. Yeah. Coming of age. So we see the Mirror Universe Admiral Quinn, and he says, Captain Picard, you did so good. You're so damn impressive. You can actually keep the Enterprise. You're the type of commander we need if we're gonna go and fight the Klingons and Cardassians. And so Picard has the Enterprise, and we end on the same character we started off with, which is Reginald Barclay. And they're having a big feast in 10 Forward. Looks like they're eating roast targ, and kind of eating like Klingons. Leia Brahms is drunk, hitting the Saurian brandy, mm-hmm. and things wrap up with Barclay telling Data. Data asks, "Lieutenant Barclay, you appear concerned." And Barclay replies, "Not concerned, Data, just uncertain. I mean, it wasn't so long ago that the only thing I wanted was to murder Picard. I wanted it so bad I could taste it. And now, how many people in this room have felt the same way? And how long can this possibly last?" And we cut to a panel of Picard sitting at his banquet table. And how long can this possibly last?
Right.
So, there's always tension on a ship in the Mirror Universe.
Right. A flagship ship with a very... really, in some ways, everybody on this crew is ambitious. Troy is ambitious. Geordi is ambitious. Let's see. I mean, honestly, I was mostly, surprised at each turn that this, I felt that, we're probably going to drop the ball because I'll be honest, I've read some of Tipton's other comics and I sometimes find them kind of bland. This was definitely, I think, their strongest work, and I think the Mirror Universe is a good sandbox for that because it's very dramatic. But I kept on expecting them to drop the ball a little bit, or at least for it to get kind of like a little snoozeville, and it mostly, I mean, it really kind of kept it up.
Well, that's another thing we see in comics a lot, and I think it's because publishers and editors, they know that the issue 1, issue 2, the early issues are always the top sellers.
Right.
So I think there's kind of like pressure on the creators to kind of have like your big
lead
moments.
with the best, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of comics, they start off very enticing,
and then you feel like it sags,
and then it does sag, and so I felt like this kind of did that a little, just because of the.
I would say the second issue was maybe where that happened, but then the third issue
I love the Riker and Picard fight.
It is good, but then the third issue they actually steal the ship, and that's really cool. Yeah. So they broadly avoided it. There might be one or two little dips here and there.
The fourth issue is where much didn't really happen. That's just where they start fighting people.
And is that the one where they were kind of dealing with the prisoners and stuff?
Yeah, where they drop off the prisoners.
A little sluggish.
But then like in the fifth issue, I think things just kind of like wrapped up so quickly, and I didn't get like that big sense of payoff.
Yeah.
Like the whole the reward for reading the story is you get to see Picard has successfully gained command of the Enterprise.
Right.
But I kind of wanted that to happen, and then he goes and does something with it.
Right, right. This is definitely this is broadly speaking about the theft of the Enterprise and trying to hold on to it. I felt like the action and the storytelling was always crystal clear in this.
Which is the most important thing of art in a comic, is to be able to convey.
A panel should instantly read as, this is Geordi getting in Picard's face, and the next panel is Picard, his hand drawing on a dagger or something like that. You need to be able to instantly connect those panels and see, just like you would in a movie, like your brain should fill in the gap, and it needs to instantly read as what is occurring.
Yeah, every panel should be like a link in a chain.
Yeah.
And you follow that process.
This guy, and Woodward for sure knows what he's doing. It is nice when you get an artist who's as good at storytelling as it is, and as good with caricature, so that the characters really resemble you feel like you can hear Data's voice and you can hear Picard's voice. You don't have to strain to it for it.
And like the ships, I love that they're used, like the Ambassador class starship shows up in here.
Yeah,
one of my favorite ship designs out of all the Starfleet ships. I don't know if that was like the Tipton's idea, if that was Woodward's idea.
Yeah,
But
he came through.
Yeah, he came through, and I mean, like, it's recognizable. It looks right. I'm a guy who's like really into the ships and the ship designs.
Just in general, this has a lot of space battles in it, and they're all pretty cool looking.
Yeah, it's very action heavy, but also has like a good bit of plot and character tied into it also. So.
Yeah, I honestly don't have any major criticisms to drop on it, other than a few lulls here and there, one or two places where I'm like, oh, that wasn't my favorite panel or something like that, but.
Yeah, and overall, the artwork is beautiful. It's super impressive, and the dialogue feels right, the characters feel right, and like we were saying, the things like the panel layout and just the communication of the actions. And,
even when he draws their
so clear.
When he draws like their the LCAR's keyboards and interfaces,
like the Okudagram stuff.
Yeah, they're all
that's spot on.
Yep.
So just to wrap things up, this is the best Star Trek comic I've read in a long time.
Yeah, I agree.
In fact, this might be out of the entire time IDW has had the license. I think this might be it's probably too early to tell. Probably just too excited about just receiving it. This might be my favorite thing they've done, though.
That's interesting. I'd be almost inclined to agree, but every once in a while they've had like a single standalone story that I just really liked. One of those done-in-one stories. And if you hit me with a done-in-one, it usually has a little bit more impact than a 5-issue story with a few lulls in it.
Much like Star Trek is traditionally episodic television and not super serialized.
Right.
Although Discovery is.
This is kind of this kind of works as a movie.
Yeah.
And it looks like a movie, so. So anyway, yeah, y'all should read it, yo.
So definitely endorsed by Tex-Trek. Check it out when it is out in trade. And let us know if you liked hearing us talk about comics, if you wanted to hear us talk about more Star Trek comics. I know there's a lot of Star Trek comics that you might not be familiar with, but might enjoy hearing us summarize them and commentate on like we just did. So if that's the case, let us know.
Yeah, there's been some interesting ones over the years. Chris Claremont from X-Men wrote a graphic novel back in just after Star Trek 4. There's there's the horrible Star Trek X-Men crossover. There's all kinds of X-Men.
A lot of the creators that I think Dave and I really like have written some Star Trek stuff though. Yeah. From Peter David to John Byrne, who called Dave an asshole one time.
It's a badge of honor.
So, John Byrne, I hope you're watching this, and if so, let us know what you think about.
Sure not, but...
Let us know what you think about Mirror Broken and how you could have done it better, because I know that's what you're thinking.
And I also would be interested to hear if anybody else has read some comics that have stood out for them, which ones they were for them.
So until next time, live long and prosper, y'all. Ha! Those Prime Universe fools sure seem to know a lot about comic books.
Nerds!
But I did rather enjoy that story. This is a Captain Picard, much more to my likings.
Did you notice his impressive facial hair?
Oh, absolutely. And I also noticed that our Prime Universe counterparts have recorded an interview with the artist of this comic, one J.K. Woodward.
He is actually a good enough artist to come over to the Mirror Universe and serve us personally.
Yes, sure, far superior than any of the other Prime artists.
Indeed.
So in the next installment of Tex-Trek, we will be unleashing that interview. But until then, long live the Empire, y'all! Thank all of you so much for checking out this installment of Tex-Trek. I hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to like our YouTube videos and subscribe to our channel. Audio-only versions of episodes are available at our website, www.tex-trek.com. Please check out our site, especially if you just want an audio-only podcast. We have that available for you. Y'all can also keep up with us online. You can follow us on Twitter, @TXTrek, or you can check us out on Facebook at www.facebook.com/tex-trek. Please, by all means, let us know what you think by dropping a comment anywhere you see fit. We definitely want to hear your feedback. Let us know what you liked and what you would like to see more of, what you would like to see differently going forward. If you want to email me directly, go ahead. I can be reached at fathereeactual@tex-trek.com. Thank all y'all again. Take care.